A Lit in 10 discussion with Lisa M. Kendrick. Excerpt from A Vindication of the Rights of Women by Mary Wollstonecraft. Passionate, outspoken, and bold, at times even reckless, Mary Wollstonecraft was the antithesis of the proper 18th century English lady. Inflamed with the revolutionary ideas of the Enlightenment, she denounced not only monarchy and slavery, but also the institution of marriage. Her embrace of natural rights included the rights of women, children, and animals. Wollstonecraft took on the eminent conservative Edmund Burke, responding to his criticism of the French Revolution with her own attack on class and privilege in A Vindication of the Rights of Men. 2 years later, she called for an end to the prevailing injustices against women in A Vindication of the Rights of Women. Reviled by some and called a hyena in petticoats, she was the mother of feminism. Wollstonecraft's publisher introduced her to Thomas Paine, William Blake, and William Godwin. After writing her notorious book on women's rights, she spent 2 years in Paris at the height of the bloody Reign of Terror, which sobered her on the French Revolution, but not on her ideals. Only a few months after marrying Godwin, she died from complications in giving birth to their only child, Mary. Yes, the Mary who wrote Frankenstein. An argument is speech or writing that makes a major claim or takes a position about an issue and supports it with evidence. Wollstonecraft's purpose is to convince her readers that there should be a change of policy about women's education to provide women with better educational opportunities. For example, she anticipates opposing viewpoints and responds with counter-arguments, using evidence to refute their claims and the assumptions upon which they are based. In the late 18th century, daughters of English gentlemen were taught reading, studying of foreign languages, playing the piano, singing, drawing, and needlework. Young women were expected to marry, and those without independent wealth had few alternatives. Barred from any professional occupation, an unmarried woman could only support herself as a servant, a nurse, or a governess. According to Wollstonecraft, in lines 1 through 15, there is a great difference in equality between the sexes. She points to the neglected education of women as the reason. She says that women's education sacrifices strength and usefulness in favor of beauty, making women weak and miserable. She goes on to say that women's education is superficial and geared toward pleasing others rather than improving oneself. In lines 38 to 44 of this excerpt, Wollstonecraft addresses the issue of inferiority. She says that men are superior in physical strength alone, but she asserts that men try to increase this natural advantage by demonstrating an adoration that deludes women into becoming beautiful objects rather than the friends of men. In lines 54 to 62 of this excerpt, Wollstonecraft takes a sarcastic tone. She directs her remarks at women, but her sarcasm also reflects how she feels about men who consider women irrational creatures. She wants to encourage women to acquire strength. She counters by suggesting that women will make better wives, mothers, and companions, that education will not make them more masculine. Around lines 120, Wollstonecraft addresses progressive Enlightenment thinkers and writers who did not believe a woman's place in society should change. Instead, Wollstonecraft urges mothers to teach their children to recognize and take pride in their strengths, to not fear what other people think of them, to speak their minds, and to seek purity of heart rather than an outward show of goodness. Wollstonecraft says women present themselves as weak and delicate, which causes them to have wild emotions and cheapens their relationships with men. She says marriages would improve if women no longer felt inferior or dependent upon their husbands, but instead were respected as a friend. She certainly practiced what she preached. She developed her mind and lived independently for years. Her chief purpose went far beyond making herself pleasing to a husband.